Good afternoon, evening, midday, morning, whatever time it happens to be in your part of town. We are Joe-less today because somebody, i.e. Billy, has to go on vacation, and we didn't get to have our normally scheduled podcast on Wednesday. And all this news is broke. So today, welcome to the extra point of offensive points. Go check out our actual weekly podcast that we recorded on Monday. It will be on YouTube shortly. Actually, after this one, ironically. But here we are with Extra Point, Bill. A lot of news has happened.
We couldn't wait a week. We just could not wait a week to talk about this. By the time we got to it next Wednesday, it would have been old as dirt. So I feel like we have to break this down right away. And then, of course, as soon as we're prepping to do this podcast, of course, the NFL never sleeps and decides to drop this Carson Wentz trade right on us. So we're going to have to instant react to that as well. So lots to talk about today.
At least we'll be the first on that one. But go in whatever order you feel is necessary with all this news.
Well, I had prepared a lot more for the Seattle and Denver trade, so I think we'll start with that, and then we'll kind of tack on at the end, kind of just basically instant reactions to the Carson Wentz trade, because I haven't even fully fleshed out what I thought about that trade just yet. So, yeah, I guess without further ado, let's just get into it. So Seattle and Denver decided to trade. Seattle receives the number 9 pick in this year's draft, the number 40 overall pick in this year's draft, which is Denver's second rounder, 2023 first and second, and a 2022 fifth round pick, as well as Shelby Harris, quarterback Drew Lock, and tight end Noah Fant.
And did the Broncos get anything?
We'll get to that. So just off the top, with just that little mini haul, what do you think right off the bat? What did you think?
I thought it was hilarious that they threw the 5th and 4th round pick in there. Like, it had to be like that was the deal breaker. Without that, the trade wouldn't have went through. But I think Seattle got an absolute steal here. They had problems with Russell Wilson as it was. So I don't think you could ask for much more, considering I think Noah Fant was the real kicker that everyone is kind of shocked about. They do have Okabwakan, I can't pronounce his name, but the other tight end that they drafted.
Just call him Alberto.
Yeah, I can't even pretend to act like I can pronounce or spell that. So they do have at least some tight end there, but for Seattle to gain a at least backup quarterback, a tight end, and then 4 pretty immediate starters, I imagine, with these draft picks. I mean, they got an absolute haul for Russell Wilson. I like it for both sides, but I feel like Seattle obviously won this trade just because of the problems and complications they had with Russell Wilson in the first place, and then not just the absolute haul that they got with them.
Yeah, so, I mean, Shelby Harris will start right away, let's be honest. Drew Lock, probably not going to start right away because I think that they're going to draft a quarterback. We'll get to that in 1 second. And then Noah Fant is an immediate starter at tight end, and whatever rookie quarterback comes in, it's a nice safety blanket for him because he's not a rookie tight end anymore. He's been in the league for 3 years now, so this will be a good chance for whoever comes in there to immediately have, DK Metcalf. They'll have Noah Fant. Maybe Tyler Lockett. I don't know. Let's get to the questions. So
I was actually just looking to see if Lockett's still signed, and it looks like he is.
He is, and I have a question about him, but we'll do the big one first. Seattle now owns the number 9 pick. Can we just pencil in Pickett or Willis here? Like, is that pretty set in stone, you would think?
I would think that they would go Willis here just because that style quarterback is what they've had for the last 10 years. So it just immediately fits in. I think this was a no-brainer. In reality, we had Denver they should have drafted a quarterback here. I don't know who we really had officially going there.
Well, we had Devin Lloyd, but we didn't think Denver would even have that pick, so we just kind of put in who we thought Denver, if they didn't trade, that was who they would.
I don't see why this wouldn't be Malik Willis personally. I think Kenny Pickett's still going to go. I think he's going to leapfrog, even with the lack of stellar quarterbacks in the draft. I think that he's going to still leapfrog and go to Carolina. So I just have to imagine Malik Willis goes here. But I mean, even Pickett would be great. Got a rookie quarter. It's a really stellar rebuild, and I think it'll be one of those immediate, at least potential playoff team rebuilds. Like, it's not like they have to go through the whole motions of getting every new player, and then this trade boosted their defense and offense. So,
okay, well. My next question to put onto that, because I think they're going Malik Willis. I think that that's pretty set in stone. There is another situation, maybe I'll get to in a sec, that maybe could present itself. But just for the next question, do they move Tyler Lockett? Is Tyler Lockett the next piece to fall here? Are they going to try to flip him for maybe a third rounder from someone else?
So that's crazy because I originally thought wherever Russell Wilson would go, Tyler Lockett would go. But at this point, they don't really need anyone on top of Judy and Sutton and Tim Patrick in Denver. So, I mean, I don't know because I don't think Lockett's as good without Russell Wilson. So I would assume that they'd want to keep him, but they are paying him a lot of money. So I think he's making like 17 mil a year or something like that. So I don't know. I would think about it at the very least. I don't know what their cap situation looks like, but I assume it's pretty great after dumping Russell's contract.
Yeah.
So they could probably afford keeping him.
Yeah, they could. I think they may move him. I don't think, he's going to be 30 this year, I believe, or he's either 30 or 31 this year. So, I mean, he's getting up there. They're clearly either trying a rebuild or it's a soft rebuild, depending on what they decide to do at quarterback. But I think either they dump Tyler Lockett. If they're going full rebuild, they got to dump Tyler Lockett for whatever they can get for him. And a third-round pick at this point, well worth it.
Yeah, I just hate the value that they put on players. I feel like draft picks are so much more highly touted than players, and Lockett could easily change your next couple years around if you traded for him. I think he'd at least be worth a second rounder, but unfortunately that would be around a third rounder.
Yeah. Unfortunately. Yeah. All right. So my last question for Seattle is there any way they can avoid a rebuild here? And that would mean maybe a potential Deshaun Watson situation. So we did get news yesterday that the grand jury will hear from Deshaun Watson's accusers on Friday, and that could potentially free up what we're, kind of what's going forward is going to be for Deshaun Watson. So is there any way that, we get this legal trouble figured out for Deshaun Watson? Obviously he's going to get suspended for X number of games, but we're going to have more clarity come Friday. Is there potential that Seattle could turn around, flip something to the Texans to put Deshaun Watson in for Seattle?
It's crazy because honestly, I didn't even think Russell Wilson's price tag was that high. So I imagine, let's say everything gets dropped, everything's free and clear, yada, yada, yada. Court date aside, you have to imagine Watson's more expensive than Russell Wilson. And
you would think so because he's 26, I think.
Yeah. And all those picks and everything. I mean, are you just going to turn around and flip that exact trade right back? I mean, or would you rather test the water and go draft Malik Willis, basically?
Well, the problem with Seattle is that they don't really have many. I mean, they don't have their own first rounder. Obviously, the Jets have it for this year. So they would be giving up like pick number 9, number 41, 40, and then they would have to probably put both 2023 picks first round in this draft. Like there would just be a whole lot that Seattle would have to give up. It would have to be one of those things that they were darn sure about.
I would honestly like to see them go and grab Malik Willis. I don't think that they have all this. They have 3 first rounders the next 2 years. Go use them. I mean, that's the point. That's the same conversation, not to bring my team into it, but the Eagles are in. They have 3 first rounders. Use them to build the team instead of to buy someone, because honestly, the buying of teams, and yeah, it worked for the Rams. It's great. But the thing about buying teams is it's not sustainable. Like you're not going to have a good team for long. And I feel like you could build those 3 first round draft picks, one of them being Malik Willis, one of them being an offensive tackle, one of them being a stellar defensive star, depending on what it ends up as. I don't know, just little chess pieces, and not utilizing that correctly can hurt your team a lot. So
I can agree with that. The only thing that kind of pains me for it is that Pete Carroll's 70 years old. Like, I don't know how many years he's going to have left to do a full rebuild. So, and they had to be darn sure that Malik Willis is going to come in there and be a star right away, because this is going to be a couple of down years. I mean, the Rams are still really good in that division. San Francisco's only, I think, going to get better. We'll see what Trey Lance can do. And then Arizona, they're not far away from being good. They were really good in the regular season this year, but they are not that far from being good all the way around. So you would need a Deshaun Watson if you're planning to compete in this division.
I agree and disagree. I mean, look, I love how the trade, everyone was like, this boosts the Denver Stars. This also boosts the Seattle Stars. Because I imagine that, yeah, well, Russell Wilson didn't look good last year. I don't know. Maybe he just wasn't playing right.
Point.
I think DK Metcalf's my top 5 prediction or whatever I had coming up for him this next year actually could be potential. Because what do you think whatever rookie quarterback is going to come in or young quarterback is going to – it's not Drew Lock, as long as it's not Drew Lock. They're going to just keep throwing to DK. They're going to throw to Noah Fant. I mean, those stars on that team are going to look just as good as maybe not quite as good as Denver's, but I think it boosts everything for fantasy. It adds a couple more players in a rotation. So
I think you're right. So, all right. Well, that's enough of Seattle. They're either in a soft rebuild or a full rebuild. Either way, Seattle fans, going to be a tough couple years, I think. So let's move on to Denver because they're all in now. So Denver in this trade gets Russell Wilson and a 2022 4th-round pick for this year. So, I mean, not obviously their first rounder, but obviously we were thinking they might go Rodgers here. They end up apparently that wasn't even in the cards. They'd been playing in this trade for about 2 weeks now. I'm assuming Russell Wilson kind of gave his blessing that hey, if Denver is on board, like that's a place that I would be willing to go. So Russell Wilson, now a Denver Bronco. What was your instant reaction to seeing that?
So honestly, I thought it happened really quickly. So obviously we all kind of had Rodgers going here, which Rodgers, I don't know if we're touching on him yet, but I'm going to go ahead and pop him in there. And I just love it because he literally complained and whined for the last 2 years about they don't build around my team. They won't build around my team. Oh, you're going to pay me $50 million? Okay, I'll just stay then, I guess. But like, what did that solve? But anyway, on to Denver. I like it for Denver. This is what they're literally one piece away. I mean, that offensive weapons they have, they're all very young. Russell Wilson's probably a better solution than Aaron Rodgers because Aaron Rodgers will give you 2 years. Russell Wilson should give you more than that, I imagine. So you got Russell Wilson, Javonte Williams, Judy, and Sutton, and even Tim Patrick. That offense is going to be stellar. They can add some key pieces in the draft and free agency. I like to see them grab some of those middle range stars in free agency. I assume they'll be pretty active in that. Not sure how much money they have after this Russell Wilson situation, but I love it for both the teams. Like I said, I don't think it was a bad trade. I just think Seattle won it because of the amount of just picks and players that they got.
Yeah, and the future looks better. Denver is clearly playing for right now. They have a good core in place. They were really just missing the quarterback. Teddy Bridgewater was not that guy, as we found out. But I guess my question to you with this makes Wilson a top blank QB in fantasy going into this next season.
I'd say top 5, but it's tough. I'd say right outside the top 5 at the very least. Top 7.
I think I was about to say 7 is probably where I'm going to slot him right now because I think if I'm just spitballing off my head, hopefully I don't forget anybody here. But we got Mahomes, Herbert, Allen, Lamar Jackson,
Burrow,
might be
Lamar Jackson,
and then Burrow's probably right around, and then Aaron Rodgers is probably going to be in there, isn't he? Probably out Lamar Jackson, put Aaron Rodgers in there. But I think you could probably put Wilson at 7, Jackson at 8, and I think I would be okay with that. I mean, Stafford's probably got an argument to be in there as well, yeah. But
I could see him sneak into the top 5. It just depends on how well chemistry goes with this team.
I just like with that amount of weapons. I mean, he's got a good run game. There's so much going for him there, and I just think that this is one of the better offenses he'll be able to play with. Maybe not weapons wise. Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf may be better than Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton, but just the full breadth of things they got going there, I think will be good for Russell Wilson.
They also didn't really have a running game. Seattle kept trying to get a running back, and it just
Chris Carson healthy was pretty good, but that was about it.
He was pretty good, and he was a solid 12-point.
Marshawn Lynch at his height, that was his best.
Yeah, and that was a long time ago, and that was when they were going to the Super Bowl, and they haven't in a while. So I like it for him. I think Javonte Williams is going to be just ridiculous this year. I think if anything, he's leapfrogged into a top 5.
I actually, so that my next question was, does this hurt any player on the Broncos? I think it might hurt Javonte. I really do. And only because I think they're going to sign someone to
catchy.
Yeah. I think they're going to have another, I thought he was going to go in, be the workhorse. They were going to focus mainly on him in the offense. Now I don't think so. I think it's going to be a very pass heavy offense. It's going to be a lot of RPO, and I get that, but I think like he's just going to split time again, which is unfortunate, but he'll still be good. I still think he'll be high. Like I'm not worried about him, but I think the ascension that we expected from Javonte Williams might be a little more capped than it was going into this offseason.
I couldn't disagree more. So my logic is Russell Wilson never had a run game. So he's literally just been doing his own thing. So what they're going to try to do is keep him healthy. So they're going to run the ball. And also Denver didn't have a passing game because Drew Lock and Teddy Bridgewater were garbage. So there's going to be a healthy mix. I think Javonte gets his 18 carries per game. I do agree they will bring in another running back. I would look at kind of like a McKissick, James White type player. I think
they might get Melvin Gordon back. Like that's my concern here.
I don't think they'll do Melvin Gordon again. They probably have a lot of cap situation. I think Melvin Gordon's going to get paid a lot more than that. I think they're going to go for one of those like mid-range McKissick, Naheem Hines types, like a true pass catcher, which Javonte Williams doesn't do bad in it, but he's not a true pass catcher. So I'm not worried about Javonte Williams at all. I think if anything, his stock went up because of this, because I think that there will be enough distraction to where Russell can throw the ball down the field. And they stacked the box against Javonte and Melvin Gordon all last year, and they still ran just fine. So that offensive line isn't a problem.
Fair enough. I think if Aaron Rodgers had gone there, I would think Javonte. But with Russell Wilson being there,
he's not as mobile as he used to be either.
Not as excited as I once was. But doesn't necessarily mean that, I don't think he's going to be bad. Let's put it that way. I'm not saying that there's like, this doesn't move him down my board at all. Like Javonte is still up at the upper echelon. So
I got a question for you then. Okay. Unrelated to Javonte, I could talk about him all day.
Mm-hmm.
Which wide receiver is going to be the wide receiver one at the end of the year?
Jerry Jeudy.
You think so?
For Broncos, yeah. And it's only because Nathaniel Hackett and the way that he designs his offenses for like how it was in Green Bay anyway, is that like I think if we just had to put the receivers that are there in the roles that were in Green Bay, so I think Jerry Jeudy will be put in the Devontae role. I think they'll put Cortland Sutton in the MVS role, and I think they'll put Tim Patrick in the Allen Lazard role. And I think that's kind of how the ball will get spread around.
God, I really hope Sutton isn't MVS.
I don't think. I mean, he's way more talented than MVS. I don't think there's any question about that. Okay, I got one more question for Denver, and then we'll move on to the Wentz trade. So, with Noah Fant leaving, obviously that leaves Albert O as the only tight end there. Does Denver draft/sign a new tight end this offseason?
I think so. I don't think you can trust him. No offense to Albert O, but he's never really had the shot, but he also hasn't really shown anything in that backup role. So I would have to assume that they're still going to go grab one.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of discourse on Twitter today about like, oh, this is finally Albert O. Like, you need to go trade for him now. Just everybody's banging the drum for Albert O. And first of all, I want to caution everybody, Russell Wilson and tight ends weren't always a great combination. I'm sure the scheme will be a little bit different with Nathaniel Hackett there, but tight ends for Green Bay weren't always a big thing too. So I just want to caution everybody that like maybe the tight end position isn't necessarily an end all be all in Denver. Maybe you don't have to go throw down some crazy trades to make something happen. I do think they add somebody in this draft. This is a pretty tight end heavy draft as far as like those mid round guys. So I think this will be an easy thing for Denver to pick up.
I think they have other issues to address in the draft. I think this would be a great free agent situation, personally. And I'm not talking the number one. They're not going to get Zach Ertz. They're not going to get Gronk if Gronk's still playing. I don't even know. But, I mean, they could grab like for one, Gerald Everett's out there. OJ Howard would be really cheap after kind of a couple.
Russell Wilson will not have Gerald Everett back.
After
what happened in Seattle last season.
That's fair, but there's there's those mid-range guys out there. Yeah. Evan Ingram, another guy who did never really live up to his name. Ferkser, Tanyan, Jared Cook. I mean, not that they need Jared Cook or anything like that, but I think there's enough tight ends out there that you could pay $3 million a year just to kind of let Albert O. All you need is a second tight end. You don't need a star tight end. You got wide receivers and running back. You'll be okay.
I agree. Okay, let's move on to this Carson Wentz trade. So literally like an hour before we were about to, not even an hour, probably like 50 minutes ago, Adam Schefter decides to pop up on my phone and drop another massive QB trade. Not as massive as Russell Wilson, but still, as far as like the dominoes falling, this is a huge domino to fall. So Carson Wentz gets traded from the Colts to the Washington Commanders. Washington receives Carson Wentz and a 2022 second round pick for this. They pretty much just swap picks, the Commanders and the Colts.
Well, they swapped a second for a third, so the Commanders got a second and the Colts got a third this year. Oh yes. No, there is the second one too. Yeah, no, never
yes.
mind.
Yes, it's weird. It was weirdly written. I will give you that. So just instant reaction. Carson Wentz on the Commanders. What are you thinking about that?
So I love this from the Eagles standpoint, because not only did this just fail abysmally for the Colts, and they basically just gave it for like a second round pick is essentially what I'm seeing, like a second potentially is what they're getting out of this, and losing a third. Yeah, they're getting the salary eaten, which is great, but what are they going to do is my question, which I imagine that's one of your questions as well. So, but back in the NFC East, gets to play the Eagles twice a year.
And the Colts. He gets to play Eagles twice this year and the Colts once this year.
So he's
in Indianapolis, by the way.
He's got something to prove. I think I don't think this guy was ever bad. I think he gets a bad rap because of his injury and a couple of injuries in the Eagles. And then
it seems like these front offices are making it seem like he's kind of a baby. Like,
I think he is a baby.
He's kind of protective of his appearance, I guess, of being the starter or whatever.
Well, this is the third team, and if it doesn't work now, it's not going to work ever, I guess is the real question here. But the Commanders do have a pretty good team, or I'm sorry, the Red Wolves. That's what I'm going to call them, because that was the correct team name you guys should have went with. But I got McLaurin, and people are worried about McLaurin's situation. We kind of talked about this where people, now McLaurin's stock goes down. It's like he had Taylor Heineke throwing the ball to him. He had 8 different quarterbacks throwing the ball the last 3 years. If Wentz can stay healthy, he's going to do what he did with Michael Pittman last year. He's going to get plenty of catches. I wouldn't be too worried about that part of it.
Yeah, I think I can agree with that as well. I'm not worried about Terry McLaurin. I think that if anything, this keeps him about the same as where he was at. I think it even raises his level a little bit. So not too concerned about that. However, this takes another quarterback destination off the ground, or off the market, or does it? Does Washington maybe still dip into the quarterback pool in this draft? I mean, that would totally just be the worst possible thing you could do for Carson Wentz. But
that would really hurt his ego.
It would be the worst possible thing for him. But he's there at the 11th pick. Like, if Pickett's sitting there, what do you do if you're Washington? Do you just let it slide, pick something else, or maybe do you try to go after that?
I would say getting like Ritter in the second round might not be a bad choice. They just gained a second round pick.
They did that with Jalen Hurts, and it hurt Wentz's feelings so bad.
I mean, I just don't see them. I don't think they should use the top 10 pick for a quarterback anymore, because you have your quote unquote starter at least for the year. And like you said, there's plenty of quarterbacks in the next year. So if he does fail, go draft yourself a new quarterback next year. I think if anything, this brings the Colts into drafting a quarterback, which they don't have a first round pick.
Sure don't.
So unless they can package these second and third to something important, like late first or something, maybe sneak in to get Sam Howell. I'm kind of worried about the Colts, honestly. But one thing we didn't touch on here is Carson Wentz went to Indy, and immediately Jonathan Taylor was vaulted to the number 1 running back in the game. Obviously, I'm not saying this is going to happen with Antonio Gibson, but I assume it's got to boost his numbers. I mean, he's been a top 15-ish running back the last 2 years.
Probably. I will have to see what kind of scheme they're going to run. I'm not really 100% positive. I'm sure it's not going to be the same thing they were doing with Heineke, but I hope it's more pass heavy for Carson Wentz's sake, because I think that would be better for him. I think having Jonathan Taylor be, the bright shining star on the team may have not helped.
Ruffled some feathers on him. Yeah.
Yes. I'm going to keep a little, keep my distance from saying what I'm thinking. But I think Carson Wentz with the Commanders, I think this is a good opportunity at a fresh start for him. I'm hoping he can do kind of what we thought Ryan Fitzpatrick was going to be able to do when he got there last year. Maybe finally we can see all of those weapons. He's got Curtis Samuel. He's got De'Ami Brown, obviously Terry McLaurin. And they got the running back, at least one. They're probably going to have to sign another one, and maybe that defense can come back. The division is not as far out of reach as possible, but with Wentz, I'm not sure how good they can possibly be. It still looks like at least third in the division, I feel like.
I don't know, honestly. Washington is set up to win the division. They are all three of
You think they beat the Cowboys and the Eagles?
Yeah, I do. I think they could. I'm not saying they will. I'm just saying I think that they're set up for it. Their defense is pretty good. They have a great running game in general because McKissick, I don't know if he's still there. And then their receivers are pretty good. I mean, if Wentz can actually play right, yeah, this is an upgrade at quarterback, regardless. I mean,
that's true.
Whether you hate Carson Wentz or not, I mean, you have to say that this is an upgrade at Heineke. And don't get me wrong, I actually liked Fitzpatrick, but he got injured week 1 and then just never came back. So
yeah. Okay, well, let's move on to the Colts because they're a way bigger question mark. So in this trade, they got a 2022 second-round pick, 2022 third-round pick, and then a 2023 third-round pick that can become a second-round pick if Carson Wentz plays 70% of the snaps. I think it's hilarious that the Colts ended up doing that exact same trade, except for this time it'll be a second-rounder if everything works out. But they're without a quarterback, Josh. They don't have any quarterback except for, I think, Jacob Eason on the roster right now. So trade seems difficult. I mean, this is a good Jimmy Garoppolo maybe situation if they can flip those seconds. Mitch Trubisky, maybe, even though it looks like Giants are going to bring in Mitch Trubisky to fight with Daniel Jones.
Jameis Winston?
Yeah, but
I mean,
I just like what I hate this for is Michael Pittman. Because he was set to have a great season coming up this next year. I think Jonathan Taylor remains with the same workload. I think whatever quarterback you get in there is going to have to be okay with being second fiddle to the run game, and that's kind of Jimmy Garoppolo's strong suit. And he's got a strong defense. So Jimmy Garoppolo kind of would be flipping a team that he's used to a new team that runs kind of the same situation. Heavy defense, heavy run game, make throws when you have to. Jimmy Garoppolo would be my pick right now if we had to guess.
Well, considering and they're most likely not going to be able to trade or draft a rookie quarterback this year.
Not a good one.
I would have to agree that I think Jimmy G or I like Jameis there too. I think that would be a terrible move. I mean, I wouldn't sign him to a long-term deal or anything, but get him through a year or two with Jonathan Taylor and Jameis. I mean, he looked pretty good as long as he comes back from that injury. Okay. But I agree. I think Jimmy G, like you said, he can play second fiddle to the running game. So that'd be a great landing spot. I don't know what the Colts are up to right now, but I'm hoping it's one of those two. Cause if it's not, I think you're screwed.
No. And then like, as far as the rest of that team, I'm really, I don't know. Obviously without knowing who their quarterback's going to be, I hate trying to prognosticate what the rest of them are going to be able to do, but I think there's no need to panic on Taylor, no need to panic on Pittman just yet. It kind of depends on who they bring in, but I don't think you can panic just yet.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe the Eagles will trade Jalen Hurts to them or something. I'm just kidding. That'd be terrible.
Yeah, for a conditional first round or second round pick.
But if plays 70% of snaps, we get your first for the next 2 years.
Yeah, that's true. No, I feel like the Eagles are lucking out. They're having all this stuff fall around them, which is fine, and they're getting to keep all their picks, and they can build a strong roster.
I'm glad that we didn't bite on the Russell Wilson. I don't even think we're really linked to him. The Deshaun Watson thing, they've said Howie Roseman's poked around, but he's probably looking for a deal if I know anything better. I don't think he's actually, let's do this, but if he could do it for cheap enough, I think he would. Hey, man, you got a lot of problems right now. Maybe we throw you a first round, one of our 3 first
I just
rounders.
don't feel like the Texans GM would do that because if he would have traded him last year probably if he was going to do deals. So I feel like he's just held on. They're still holding because this Friday, literally, like I mentioned earlier, we find out a little bit more information. This will not be the set in stone, like what happens in the case, but hearing from the grand jury and kind of getting more of a sense of how that case is going to go will kind of determine what we're going to see from Deshaun Watson this offseason. But
you're absolutely right. But yeah, I don't know what the Colts are going to do quarterback wise. It's actually kind of a bombshell on their part. I think it's a great move for Washington. And not to mention you really didn't have to give much up for it. A second or a third round pick and swapping your seconds and then potentially a second round pick next year.
Yeah, there's a very good chance by the time people listen to this podcast, whether it's a day from now or 2 days from now, that the Colts have already made the trade and we don't even have to you're just hearing us talk about possibilities when we already know the answers. So.
Well, like you said, I think Jimmy G is the most suitable fit here. Hopefully that's what their game plan is here.
I would imagine so. And that would clear the way for Trey Lance to be the quarterback in San Francisco. And then Jimmy G gets a chance to have his very own team. The Colts have had like 5 different starting quarterbacks in the last 5 years, since
Luck retired,
which is kind of hilarious. But like it sucks for them because they built such a great roster. And if they could just get that one position right, which is why if you're the Broncos, you make that kind of trade, because if you have built the roster and you just get that one guy that can change everything, then you'll be fine. And they didn't do it with Wentz, so hopefully they can do it with whoever the next guy there is.
I mean, other than off the field issues, I don't know why they're giving up on Wentz this early as it is. But I mean,
Washington's taking the contract. That's
the contract was stupid. We can talk about that all day. But yeah, I don't know. I feel bad for the Colts, because if they don't make the right move now, like, they're screwed.
I do too. You're right. That's exactly what I'm thinking. Okay, well, that's all we got for today. It was just a short little. Had to get these trades in there because we could not wait until next Wednesday, because free agency starts next Wednesday, Josh, and we're going to have a whole hell of a lot to talk about next Wednesday. So we just need to get these trades out of the way. Sorry, Joe, that you couldn't be here. They will be on the Dynasty Tailgate podcast tomorrow talking about the NFL Combine, which a lot more to talk about now, because now you have no clue where these quarterbacks are going to go exactly. We kind of had some spots pegged in our mock draft, and those 2 of them got exploded, I think.
We'll have to see what happens the next week. It's going to be phenomenal. I assume these trades aren't done either. So
yeah, I think we're going to see a lot more before next Wednesday. So without further ado, follow us at Offensive Points. Follow at Josh Hall STL1H. Follow me at Umbre Vendor on Twitter. Hit us up, talk to us, let us know what you think. Josh, get us out of here.
Thanks for listening to us, guys. Hopefully none of these trades and conversations comes obsolete by the end of this, but we appreciate you listening, and we'll get this a little bit better next time. We'll try not to go on vacations, Bill.
Yeah, well, tell people not have weddings at any point in their lives.
That's also fair.